Truck's warming up, got everything tied down. Thought I'd read to you a letter I wrote to the MeatEater crew about their article. If you Google ANWAR MeatEater, you'll find it. But they come out. There are two kinds of people: those that categorize people into two groups, and those that are wrong or right, depending on what we're talking about. Another two types of people are Alaskans and those from everywhere else trying to dictate how we live here. You could say there are two kinds of people: Alaskans and cat people. Alaska natives have been suffering such circumstances since the Russians sailed over. Today, Alaskans as a whole deal with the federal government trying to dictate the manner in which we manage and harvest Alaskan game, a responsibility assigned to the state of Alaska upon becoming a state and further laid out in ANILCA, which is not to be confused with ANCSA, the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act. ANILCA is the Alaska National Interest Lands Conservation Act. Federal agencies such as the National Park Service, the Bureau of Land Management, have an extensive and lurid history of violating these accords by making rules that disregard the aforementioned pacts that prohibit means of take allowed by Alaska regulations. Such violations are often encouraged, lauded, and uproariously praised by residents of the Lesser 48 when their elected representatives push for them, many of which cat people will likely never set foot in Alaska to take a photo, let alone participate in any manner of taking game. Some of these species of game are experiencing burgeoning populations as evidenced by their increasingly generous bag limits and seasons. This is a testament to Alaska's Department of Fish and Game and the hunting, trapping, fishing participants, the majority of whom are Alaskans, are actual Alaska residents. Not to toot Fish and Game's horn too hard, as they're not always right, but when they get it right, they deserve credit, and rightfully should catch shit when they do not. I am also happy to say that Alaska and Alaskans have made headway against such federal intrusions with the conclusion of the John Sturgeon case and the preceding change in the Park Service's attitude, resulting from the lesser-known earlier case involving Jim Wild, though that particular case did side with the Park Service. I was saddened to see that MeatEater placed themselves in the camp of the cat people on a particular issue, evidenced with this article: Will oil lease sale for Arctic National Wildlife Refuge lead to actual drilling? Which right now it's moot. It doesn't matter because the lease sales didn't happen. No sales. The closing quote in particular stands out. I often wonder if the people who want to drill ANWAR ever think about the future in general or their personal legacy in particular, Ranella said. They have a choice on how they'll be remembered. The folks with so much greed and lust that they blemished our last greatest wilderness for profit, or the folks with so much love and virtue that they saved it. Who do you think would be more celebrated by our children? As with any issue, there are a myriad of facets to consider. Starkly missing from the linked article was the relatively, see, when I printed it out, it cut off part of the margin. I'm a techno cripple. Relatively minute size of the 1002 area. ANWAR is just over 30,000 square miles, roughly double the size of Michigan's UP. The 1002 area is about 2,350 square miles, just under the size of the state of Delaware. Alaska is just over 663 square miles, which makes Alaska well over double the size of the great state of Texas at 268,000 square miles. 3 times the size of Texas at low tide. Another issue only briefly mentioned in the article is the proximity of the 1002 oil fields Another issue only briefly mentioned in the article is the proximity of the 1002 oil fields of the 1002 to oil fields that have already proven that oil can be effectively, profitably, and most importantly, safely extracted and transported from the Beaufort Sea coast to Valdez, a trek of 800 miles via the pipeline. Game populations in the area of Prudhoe Bay and that of the pipeline are thriving. Poor Alaskans like myself can get in our trucks and drive up there to hunt them if we so choose. I have not yet made that trek myself, but hunting the Dalton Corridor with my recurve is getting higher on that list. Anyway, from my quick and dirty measure via the Google Maps tool, it's just over 100 miles overland from the village of Kaktovik deep in the 1002 area to existing infrastructure. I'm sure the route of a pipeline from the 1002 to the existing pipe could vary from that in actual length. Also, whether the oil companies have adequately compensated Alaska and Alaskans for that historical oil and how they should in the future is a topic for another discussion. I recently saw the tag on a First Light coat. As a poor hunter, trapper, and fisherman working shift work to support my habits, my family, and my half of the bills, I generally can't afford clothing priced like that outside of milestone birthdays and anniversaries. But from what little exposure I have to that line of gear, it seems to be petroleum-based and made in Vietnam according to the tag. Alaska oil has proven to be some of the most cleanly and safely harvested product. Where is the oil coming from which First Light is made? How cleanly is it produced and under what conditions? I don't ask expecting answers, just making an observation. There was a vast array of conditions under which oil extraction should or should not occur in ANWAR. If it can be done safely, cleanly, and profitably, not just for the damned oil companies, but for Alaska, which is experiencing severe budget issues, though it shouldn't be, given the rich oil history, and Alaskans, with similar results to the neighboring oil extraction, then it should occur. If it cannot be done safely, cleanly, and won't be a monetary benefit to Alaska and Alaskans, then it should not occur. Then it should not. What? Then it should not occur. That is the basis upon which this should be measured, not pretty pictures of rams and craggy mountains that aren't anywhere near the end of the 1002, which is the area in question. There weren't such pictures in the particular article linked, but I've seen such on social media whose poster's intention was congruous with that of the MeatEater article. In either direction, it can be a slippery slope. I don't want the entirety of the North Slope spiderwebbed with pipe, as the Midwest is covered in roads separated by agriculture, but neither can we allow ourselves to be complete preservationists. If the benefit is worth it to Alaska and Alaskans, the 1002 should be explored. If the cost is not worth it, as it is not in the case of the Pebble Mine, then the 1002 should be left as it is. But these aren't horses of differing colors. These aren't even the same species. Pebble is a largely alluvial and highly geologically active area smack dab on the Pacific Rim of Fire. A 700-foot tall earthen dam can't be expected to hold back that 10 square mile of poison in perpetuity. That lake would approach 1% the size of the state of Rhode Island, by the way. I do very much enjoy your show. I rewatch what's on Netflix, probably too much, and I'm catching up when you guys put it on YouTube. I also very much enjoy the MeatEater podcast and Cal's Week in Review. I found the bit about the toilet weasels damned amusing. You guys have also helped me be more adventurous in the kitchen, and I'm loving the hell out of that. I cook more stuff on the bone and leave great amounts of sinew on for braising, and it is so good. On top of cutting days, like 6-7 days before 3 days now of cutting up moose. Processing time for last fall's moose. Toot my own horn a minute. You can see what video I got of that adventure. My oldest son's first time on the long hunt at the link. Look back in the videos. You'll find it. Overall, I very much enjoy what you guys do and will continue to watch and listen for now. I hope you guys have a good Christmas and New Year. Be safe out there. P.S. Speaking of links, the crash is starting here in interior Alaska. Due to a myriad of equipment and scheduling issues, I've only just gotten out. This is an old letter. I've been on the line for a little bit now. Here's a picture of my greatest catch and a lynx headband I made. Be safe out there. Insert picture of my wife. Wearing a lynx headband. So most of it's moot because the sales didn't happen. But it's still relevant because Alaska and Alaskans should have a little bit more say in what the heck happens here than cat people from anywhere to hell else. It's been a problem and shouldn't be. Truck's warm, I'm going.